So, what is religion and what are the different forms and functions that it takes? To answer that, we need to explore what is ritual and how rituals are formed and expressed. And also, we need to explore the role that religion plays in maintaining and changing societies. Let's explore this definition of religion, okay? So, religion on its basic form, it's a belief, it's a ritual that is concerned with supernatural beings, powers, and forces. According to Wallace, there's many definitions. So, supernatural beings, powers, and forces. It's whatever, it's beyond us that explains who we are and that might help us and make sense of the world that we live in. And in terms of its sociological expression or institutional expression, and that's what Rees is indicating, it's groups of people, bodies of people that will gather together and on a regular fashion to worship, to pay attention to try to connect to that world of the supernatural. For Durkheim, which is the founder of sociology, one of the most interesting social scientists in terms of exploring for the first time in depth religion as a human phenomenon. He studied. He was interested in exploring its elementary forms because he had the intuition that all religions were connected to humans, and humans express certain beliefs and sentiments and ideas through religions similarly. And this is what he looked for, elementary forms. He figured that it was too complex to study more larger institutionalized forms of religion, and he figured that if we studied elementary expressions of it would be easier to understand the larger um, formulations of religion in the world. For Turner, which is another famous anthropologist, religion is about creating an intense community related to spiritual things. So, but what we see in all societies is that religion and cultures is that religion is also associated with social divisions. Let's explore some of these representation representations of religion in its basic form. So let's start with animism, which, by the way, was studied by Taylor. Taylor, which was an evolutionist, understood religion as something that also was subject to evolution. That is, it would go from less complex to more complex forms and expressions. For Taylor, animism was the simplest of its forms, and it was the belief that all elements in the world that we live in have souls and have representations in souls. Um, as we move forward from that from the forms of animism, we get into polytheism, which is the belief that are multiple gods, not just one. Think, for example, of the Aztec, which we're going to be exploring in some of the videos that I have prepared for you in the discovery section. Polytheism for the Aztec was that there were gods that explain rain, war, sun, life and death, and all of those different gods together conform the vision of the spiritual realm that Aztec people have. According to Taylor, you move from polytheism, which is a more ancient form of belief, into monotheism. And of course, you got to remember that Taylor would be seeing things from the perspective of Europe. And since Europe had moved into monotheism, so it was sort of natural that monotheism would be a more modern and evolved form of religion. And monotheism is what we know. It's simply the belief in a single and all-powerful deity. That is one single God. Um, for Taylor, none of the religions that are not represented in the form of God or gods, which there are many, they didn't have a place in his scheme. In his view, religion will eventually decline curiously because it was declining on himself, and most advanced intellectuals in Europe at the time um, were were questioning the need and the necessity for religion. And so his view is that religion would decline as science came to offer better explanation for things. So in other words, science would be the new religion. I think this was quite damaging because science is never trying to take place the place of religion ever. It doesn't. We're not talking about the same realm. Science is about finding evidence, and religion is about adhering to certain beliefs. So it's a different realm. This has created a lot of confusion in terms of what science thinks and believes about religion or considers about religion. Let me skip mana interval. Magic and religion. Well, this is something that is important to consider because many religions of the world have connections with magic and magical things. But magic is different from religion. Magic is more about techniques, not so much beliefs in something. It's a series of techniques that are intended to accomplish specific aims. You apply those techniques so that you get something out of it. You do magic when you want people to love you. You do magic when you want people to give you riches, and you do magic so the things that you need would happen. Um, there are connections. If you're Christian or Catholic, you believe that if you pray, there's the possibility that some things will take a better shape. Usually we pray for the better, right? So there are connections. I'm not saying magic and religion is the same, but there are connections. And that's what anthropologists have found as they study different cultures. So religion and magic don't just explain things and help people accomplish goals, but they also serve as emotional and cognitive to address emotional and cognitive needs. Emotional is if I feel frustrated and devastated, then how do I find an answer to this? And then cognitive needs. We all have these larger questions larger than life. Is this it, or is there something else? And what is that? So religion will help put at ease our minds in terms of some of those questions that are difficult to grapple with our minds. For Malinowski, a very famous anthropologist at the beginning of the 20th century, he stated that magic is used to establish control, but religion is born out of the real tragedies of human life. So what this means is that for Malinowski, religion had deeper meanings and deeper and more substance, if you like, than magic. Magic instrumental, religion more substantial in terms of meanings. Humans are symbolic animals. We need rituals and sorry about the back and forth. We need rituals to express many things. We need rituals to convey information to other participants in our culture. For example, a ritual will be a marriage. So when you get married, you want people to come and witness that you're telling your partner, I want you for the rest of my life, or I want you for real, right? So, and they serve as elements that will help to signify the moment. And rituals, and this goes back to Durkheim, are social facts, are elements that we can account for, that we can document, and that we can talk about as things that are there to be understood. Another element that is quite interesting of religion is that religion helps people like you and me to signify different moments in our lives and our experiences. We go from childhood to adolescence, from adolescence to adulthood, from being single to be married, from being alive to pass away. And all those moments that are moments of profound importance to signify our existence need to be marked somehow. And religion is a wonderful place where to actually enact this. This is not the only way to enact this. And if you have friends that are people without beliefs and religious beliefs, you will see how they have also find profound ways and important ways to represent socially those moments of passage. And that's what matters. We are all humans in the same way, and we all need to signify these moments because remember, we are fundamentally symbolic animals, whether we're religious or not. There's a concept in the rituals of passage that I want you to keep in mind, and that is the concept of liminality. When we want to express the transition, and this is a human universal, we tend to signify it by breaking with what is normative at that moment, signifying it in different ways, and then it's a little bit like what happens with the silkworm. It goes from being a worm into becoming a beautiful butterfly, right? So the shedding of the cover, it's a nice metaphor as to what it is, the liminality. I set aside, I leave behind what was before, and I move into a new moment. And to do that, we take certain, in different cultures of the planet and different religions, we will engage in certain rituals, and I want to explore that with you. And that passage, we call that liminality, the state that we take in. So, for example, take a look at this table here. So when we, let me get it, get a little closer to it. There you go. So when we, sorry about the coming and going here. So the normative state is that we have heterogeneity, we have structure in place, we have inequality, we have names, property, status, dress distinction, sexuality, maximization of sex distinctions, rank, pride, and so forth. When we engage or go through this stage of liminality, we set all that normative social signifiers of social structure to be somewhere else. So we will be emphasizing transition, homogeneity. We're all the same. We're going from that to here, from there to here. We do that publicly and in the context of the community. We aspire for equality, anonymity, absence of property, absence of status, nakedness against dress distinctions, sexual continence against sexuality, and so forth and so on. So most cultures in the planet will engage in these specific actions that signify the transition. And that's what we call liminality. Okay, wow, I'm getting dizzy here. Other forms and expressions in religion that have been quite interesting for anthropologists is totemism, which is a way to connect with our past. In totemic societies, each descent group has an animal, a plant, or a geographical feature that signifies the descent, that is the group of people that we come from. We actually do that quite a bit in Western societies with the last name. Think of it. Why do you have a last name? Because you want to be connected with what your parents were. In the Hispanic culture, for example, we keep the two last names, not just one. Although I know that it's a little bit more complicated in the U.S. when you have a middle name. Sometimes the middle name is a totemic search for that relationship with something that was in your past. If you're keeping either your maiden name or you're keeping your mother's last name, that's how we do it. So totems continue to mark groups in contemporary nations. This is something we do that not just in totemic societies, but it's something that I would think as a human universal. In my introduction, I talked about religion and cultural ecology. So there's a fascinating book that I would love for you to read if you have the time, and maybe you have the time, maybe during the break. That is on Cows, Pigs, and Witches by Marvin Harris. And he talks about his aim is to try to explain how different religions express the conditions, the material conditions in which people live. So he asks this question: if pigs are forbidden in Muslim cultures, if cows are forbidden to be eaten in India in the Hindu religion, there's got to be a material reason why that makes sense, and then it is hence represented in religion. So hence, that's how he explains the Hindu doctrine of nonviolence, forbidding killing of animals. Um, it's a very provocative idea, and one that I would encourage you all to explore. To what extent our religious beliefs also represent our understandings of the world and actually um, give a symbolic significance to it. I'm going to switch to social control. I'm running out of time, so I need to move into social control. Marx, the German/British philosopher of the 19th century, he expressed his dissatisfaction with religion, and he portrayed religion as the opium of the masses. That is, the set of ideas that would cloud your mind so that you don't see the things that need to be changed. But that saying can also be understood, and I think he might also have that meaning embedded in his statement, that religion will be something that was necessary to soothe the pain and inconsistency and the incongruent reality of living. So if you cannot explain what's going on, if you cannot explain pain, death, and all the big questions that we have in life, then religion can serve as a way to soothe that pain. So it can have those two explanations. People tend to understand the Marxist proposal as the latter. But in any event, what we do know is that religion helps to structure societies, and there's power in religion. Religions have been used to control sexuality, have been used to control political participation. It has been to control, for example, in gender terms, control women. And that's something that we also need to consider as something that has happened as part of religion. So religion and social control have a lot to do, whether we like it or not. In the US, there's the case of the witch hunt, not just in the US, but in medieval times in Europe, right? Religion was also a leveling mechanism, a way to stop people from getting too far away and with too much riches from the rest of the people, particularly in peasant societies where horizontal distribution of beings was critically important for the survival of the community. So the one thing that is universal is that most religions do have formal codes that would prohibit certain behaviors. And what anthropologists have done is take a step back and just try to understand why is that society and that religion promoting certain behaviors and prohibiting others. And that's a fascinating question to ask from the anthropological perspective. Okay, another point that I mentioned in my initial lecture is that there are different kinds of religions. And if you start studying anthropology of religions, you will see how one of the aims and the interests of anthropologists will be to create typologies so that we can understand how humans have organized their religious life as institutional life, not as the actual existence of the supernatural and of the divine, which I'm not going into the realm, but just as a manifestation of human behavior. You can actually find different typologies. You have shamanistic religions, you have communal religions, or religions that would enhance or underline a communal life. Even within religions, certain, for example, in Christianity, we know well that there's been monks in medieval times and nuns, and that was a way to celebrate and propitiate communal life. There's the Olympian typologies, religions that are tied to the state. Think of Iran, for example, or nowadays most Muslim nations in which religion and the state got to be connected. Otherwise, we will place a state above God, and that's not acceptable in those religions. And then monotheism, that worship, as you know, a single supreme being. And in most Western nations where monotheism has been prevalent, the state and the politics have been somewhat disconnected institutionally, but of course, in terms of power, heavily connected as a historical fact. So here's a table with a typology of religions, and I'm going to move forward because of issues of time. Max Weber is a sociologist that anthropologists have studied and follow without shame, because he's such a powerful proposal. He studied Protestantism as a religion that brought to the Americas, and more specifically to the United States, a specific ethics of work and labor and production of value that explains the initial emergence of the U.S. as a power. And I'm not going to get too much into it because I don't have enough time, but it is a fascinating proposal. And if you think of he studied the Calvinist ethics. And in Calvinism, there's this importance of being saved. And if you're saved, that's something that is predestined. And if you're saved, then that should be expressed in how you live here. And so if you have success, if you create value, and if you're happy, then that's a strong indication that you have been saved. So it was paramount, it was fundamental for Calvinists to be successful in this life, so that they would have assurance that they would be saved in the next life. We have already explored some of the world's largest religions, so I'm not going to get into that. But let's take into numbers. Different religions have different numbers, and I want you to come back to this Prezi presentation that is also posted, and explore and see by the year 2005 how many millions different religions did have in the world. And just ponder for a moment what is the importance of these numbers. Now, for anthropologists, you would look for a way to systematize your understanding of religions. And one has been to organize religions from the most unified to the most diverse religions. And you'll see how the religions are placed in different, and it's not a ranking, but in different distance from most to least diverse. And for example, Christianity that was divided during the Middle Ages so much, then it will be quite a divided religion. Hinduism, because it doesn't have a centralized idea, and then it's plenty diverse. And Baha'i, on the other hand, is pretty centralized and unified at the moment. In terms of percentages, that ties to the numbers that we explore. Here are the different religions according to the percentage and numbers in which it is practiced. Come back to the Prezi for a more specific view of this information. And then last but not least, religion and change. Religion on the one hand helps to maintain the social order, but it also helps to create a fundamental change. And we only need to see what's going on in what has happened in different parts of the planet to see how religion has played a fundamental role in relationship to social order. Okay, with this I leave my brief presentation on religions. I hope you enjoy reading the chapter of the book. Please pay attention to those clips that I have prepared for you, and I'll see you in the cooperative learning section of this module, which I really hope you're going to enjoy, and then your problem solving, where I get to see and listen to your more personal take on different things. Okay, thank you very much, and I will see you soon.